All right, good evening. Thank you for joining me here. Tonight we're going to work through and figure out which side of the lines to bevel on for this bucking horse specialty pattern. And we went through in the earlier video in part 1 and transferred our pattern, cut all the lines in, and then when we first started our beveling, we went around the outside edge. So we started on that outside edge and continued with all the lines to push everything outside there. And in this video, I'm going to continue on and we're going to figure out, without having to look line by line to see on our reference guide which way to bevel these, I'm going to show you how to break down a complicated pattern like this. We'll follow a few simple rules and it's going to help walk through and kind of put the puzzle together of where we want to bevel at. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between a few tools in this video because I think it's going to be a little bit easier to show you a more clear picture by doing so. Normally I would go through and bevel everything and then I do the rest of my tooling, my shading and all my details, and then at the end I would come back and background it. But in this video I'm going to be bouncing back and forth and we're going to be using 3 tools here. So the first tool I'm going to be using is Barry King XX Steep Checkered Bevel, and this is actually a size 2, so this is the biggest XX Steep bevel. And then I'm going to be using the XX Steep Checkered Bevel size 0, or the smallest one that he has, so we can fit in a little tighter places, but those are both going to be used for beveling. The other tool I'm going to use is my bar grounder. This one I believe is a size number 25, but this one we're going to start actually putting in some of those background spaces so you can see where that is, and it's going to help us stand apart. Now again, the first video we started with any line on the outside because the purpose of beveling is to show depth and layering within the pattern. And so I know that we want this bucking horse standing up, everything else is back behind there. So I can go around that edge and be pushing things out or down. And those lines we carried off into there because once we start a line beveling, we're not going to change directions on which side of that line we're going to bevel, right? So that led us to the inside on some of these lines. That's going to help us put this puzzle together. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my bigger space fillers. So in your traditional pattern, it'd be like your big flowers in the center, leaves, stumps, that sort of thing. And we talk about that a little bit in the drawing course if you're in there. But for here, I'm going to look, and I don't have any flowers in this pattern, but we do have a leaf, right? So I can kind of recognize that leaf right here. So I'm going to start by beveling out on the outside of this leaf. That's going to help stand that leaf up, pushing other things down around behind it. Now there's going to be some layering and things like that in this pattern. You can see like this piece coming and shoots underneath there. But the maker's mark is sitting above that leaf. But if I come to this side of it, I can follow this line. I'm going to turn that a little bit as we do there. Okay. Now that line turns and goes to the inside of that leaf, but it's the same line, so I'm not going to change sides on it, right? So I can follow that around, and we'll fade that on in there. Okay, from that main space filler, that thing, we're going to look to what I would call the dominant stem coming out of there. So there's going to be a stem that leads towards that. If this was a flower, it'd be the stem the flower is growing on. But here it's this leaf. So this main stem coming right out there is what we're going to call the dominant stem. That's going to be what stands on top. And so we'll bevel out from there because we're going to layer things down behind there. So I'm going to come to the inside of that stem, and we're going to start with that line. Fade that out, because if it's a line that ends within the middle of the vine work, we just fade it out nice and easy. Okay, now the other side of that stem, right, we can bevel that the other way so it's standing on top. Now from that stem, if that's going to be on top, we're going to bevel out from there to layer down, right? So this big line comes down here. Now as I move out, so I come out to that next line, that one's going to bevel out. So you can see that's a little stem that's coming off of that main dominant stem. This little sticker vine just kind of branches out from there. So I can follow that line all the way down on the inside. Okay, now coming back up to where that comes out at, that little line there is the top of that little sticker vine. That's going to bevel the other way to create that actual vine itself, right? So if we have this leaf here and that stem, this line or this vine comes out there. So we just created that little triangle, everything beveled in towards it is making that a background space. So I'm going to grab that bar grounder and let's fill that in so we can start seeing some background there. Okay, moving down here, we've came down that line. Now moving out, we can see another line. So it's creating this one more vine, this sticker vine shooting underneath here, right? So we're going to go ahead and bevel that off to the inside as well. Rotate around as we're going there. Okay, and again, come up to the top of that vine where it's shooting out from there. And we can make the top of that. We've created another background space in here, right? So I'm going to grab my bar grounder. We can show that. I'm just going to keep rotating this around. Now that one is what we just did. We just did this line here off to the inside. Now if I shoot out from there, we can look at what's coming off of here. So it looks like we're kind of creating another stump in here, right? That little line goes. This line goes. Okay, now let's catch the tops of them. Come right there, and that just stops right in there. Moving back up, the top of this stump coming out. Now we just created 3 more background spaces in there, right? So I'm going to get my bar grounder, and let's come in and mark those so we can see those a little bit better. Okay. Hello, hello. Appreciate you guys all taking your time to jump on here with me tonight. Put that bar grinder down. Now we've worked our way right back around to that main leaf there. So we're back to where this dominant stem is. I keep losing focus. Let's see if I can get that to lock in there at all. We'll see if that helps. I think it's trying to pick up on my hands as they're coming into view there. Sorry about that. Okay. So back into our dominant stem from that leaf. We worked on the inside. Now we can look to come out from there. So there's this line here. It fades off in there into the vine work. Now it just runs in to this piece here. So it's telling me that that's overlapping. So where does that come out? Oh, it continues on right here. Then where does it go? Oh, there it is right here. It picks up and comes out right here. Oh, I see the focus thing that's happening here. Let me finish this line. What it's doing is picking up my maul there. Hang tight with me just a second while I adjust this camera just a little bit here. Hang tight. We're going to get this moved down a little bit lower. All right, hang tight with me. We'll get this set up a little bit better. Keep it from losing focus as much, hopefully. Okay, let's keep trying. We'll see if that helped at all. Okay, so this line here was the one we just went out from our dominant stem. Caught that outside, followed it underneath, kept it going. All right. Now that's actually the top of this sticker vine here. So we can get that there. Now, looking at that, comes back. We're running into this other space filler here, right? This big stump here. So we can work on the outside of him and then work our way backwards. Okay, now this continues down. Fades off in there. I'm going to come back to that same space filler, this big stump, and we're going to keep going around the outside of it. Okay, now where that came and crossed in and faded to it, but didn't quite touch. Trying to just bevel that real close to help that look of that fold over there. But now, if this is that stump kind of turns into that dominant stem, we need to bevel out from there so it's stacked up. Okay, now in doing that, we just created another little background triangle, right? All three of those lines are beveled in towards each other. So I'm going to swap over and grab that bar grounder, and we can mark that background out. Turn that back so we can start seeing that's coming together, right? Now we're going to continue to look through here and follow through that same idea of finding our space fillers, working out from the dominant stem, and standing that stem up both sides. Let me catch up. I got a question here. Do you ever rebevel the parts you bar ground to get more definition, to stand out more? Typically, my bar grounder comes at the very end after I've tooled the rest of everything, so I won't go back in and rebevel after that. The reason we're doing the bar grounding right now is to help show where we're going with the background spaces, so we can see the direction that we're beveling. Okay, coming again here, let's look for more space fillers. Space fillers and the end of our vine work, right? This, we started with that leaf. Now looking at where things are flowing at. These are coming down, comes down, and we get some stop points here, right? We stop at this stump. This comes and stops at this little leaf here. Same thing. This is all going to come down, and they fall out and stop there. Same thing. Every one of these feet is a stop point where those stumps are, so we can backtrack and follow those back. So let's start down here, right down here in that horse's nose, and start right around the outside of this kind of a turned over swirl stump looking space filler here. There's no real exact name for what this is, seeing how kind of just made it up to fill the space that we needed. We'll come around it. I'm getting in this tight little curve around here. I'm just going to grab that smaller bevel real quick. Okay. Now it comes and runs into there. This line here kind of turns into that main dominant stem coming out of this space filler. So we're going to come to the outside of it, or the inside of it, excuse me. Fade that around. Now, working our way away from that dominant stem. We'll start stepping these out. Again, working out there. Now that we've worked out on those, I'm going to come back and catch the tops of them so we can close out some of these background spaces and start seeing those better. Close out the top of that one. Close out the top of that one. And this one here is a little bit longer, but it's kind of becomes a little bit of a space filler in itself. Just turn that leather a little bit as we go. So we're going to come right around the outside of that. We gotta take a second here and look and see what it is we're filling in and making. This one's coming off. You see where that line comes and fades in there, where this is actually folding down in there, coming here. So that means this becomes that same vine that we can bevel in there. Now we're going to grab that bar grounder, fill in some of these background spaces to help make it a little more clear as we're moving along. Okay, and where all these bevel lines are all pointing in at each other, that's a good indicator to me that that's a background space. Now, if you are having trouble with seeing some of that stuff, again, you can always go back and double check your original picture there to start seeing where those spaces are. But I'm just trying to teach you some fundamentals that are going to help see this, and not just this pattern, but any of the other patterns that you're going to work on as well. Okay, and here where this folded over, we created another little background space there, both beveling towards each other. Yes, straighten that size 2 is the bevel I normally use. Okay, that's this one here, so I'm going to go back to that again. So let's turn this back over so we can see. Yeah, Josh, he marks the background areas with a pencil, so kind of same idea, going through and marking those as you go. Let's continue on and go to another one of our space fillers here, or the end of a vine work. We're going to come right here to the end of this vine that comes and tucks right underneath that leaf there. And the edge of it is just tucks right back under itself here. Fades in there. So there we just came all the way around the outside edge of that little kind of a partial stump. And once that folds over, it becomes its own dominant stem here. So we're going to work out on it. Come out. Step out from there. That one comes under that leaf, so we're going to pick it up where it comes out at. Still bevel in the same direction. Okay, stepping out from there. Comes underneath, pick up where it came underneath that. Fades down, stepping out from there. Okay, stepping out from there. Now that just wrapped right around in there because that is where that fold over is, right? So now I can work my way right back up, filling in around the tops of all these little vines and stumps that we just created here. back up to the next vine, get the top of it. And next vine is this little stump thing that we had, so we'll work right around it all the way. We came up that vine. We can catch the outside there. And we're back to that end point that we started with. Okay, we created a lot of background spaces along there. So I'm going to come back with my bar grounder and we'll mark those out. Again, all these little spots where we just beveled all the lines in towards each other tells me that's a background spot. That's a little tiny background spot. I need to find a smaller bar grounder there. There we go, that one fits in better. Okay, again, all these beveling in towards each other. Okay, turn that back around. This picture's starting to come together. Got extra tools. I usually don't leave them laying out there, but I just left them for quick access for going back and forth. All right, now going back to our main big bevel here. We just worked our way all the way up into here. But now where that folds over becomes its own dominant stem right there. Let's look from that dominant stem, work out. It stacks up into this place here. Okay, layers underneath where this other dominant stem had came over. So a lot of times you'll have, when you have two dominant stems coming branching together, there'll be a point where they come in together. Then one has to decide to go under while the other one's going over, like in this case, and with a small filler in the middle there. Or like here, that filler winds up tucking and going all the way underneath that prior stem there. Okay, so on the inside of this dominant stem, that's going to turn and bevel out, right? Beveling out from your dominant stem. Okay, this is this dominant stem coming back into this space filler, which became its own dominant stem there. So we have just that little bit of joint piece, that bud coming out from the center. So we can bevel on the outsides of that bud because it's becoming its own little space filler as that center bud. Okay, and we just created a few background spaces. I'm gonna grab that bar grounder and we'll get those marked in here as we go. Hopefully you guys can kind of see a little bit of a system starting to come together for how we can go just start following a few of the same rules that we're talking about over and over here, but by repeating them and going through, Using those guidelines, we're able to start putting this puzzle together and figure out which sides to bevel everything on. Now, while we're already up here at the top, I'm going to look and see what's going on. We had beveled our outside lines, which has left us to this point here. So I can see that this is folded and turned over, creating its own end point there. So that means that needs to bevel in, which is going to create that background space for us right there. So I'm just going to bevel that in right there and mark that background. Okay, so now all of our pattern beveled and backgrounded all the way down and through here. We got a few more spots to contend with down here, and then right up that center line. So let's start by coming to these outside extremities and working our way back. So we'll just start right here with this end point, this big folded over stump, and it's folded over there, we can see. So we can bevel that line in. Okay, now let's work. That outside comes underneath all this stuff, picks up here. It's intersecting, which means it's coming underneath something. Oh, it picks up right here. I'm just going to continue to follow that line, because once I start on a line, we stay the same direction on it. Keep turning this pattern a little bit as we go. That's intersecting with something, so I need to look and see if it follows through and picks up anywhere. Yeah, we pick up right there. Now it intersects in here, but I look, no, it doesn't pick up anywhere. That's just this dominant stem merging in with this one. Now we have three lines beveled in towards each other, creating that background space right there. So let's background that. Isn't that kind of cool? We followed that one line from clear out there at the end of that vine work. Was able to get all the way up through our pattern there until it merged in. Okay, now if that was the outside, that just created its own dominant stem coming there. So I'm going to work towards the inside of it. Fade that down. Come all the way up. Continue this around just because it's that same line. Does that intersect? No, it doesn't intersect. It actually comes near that line, which creates that fold over, right? So when that folds over there, this is that dominant stem running out through there. Let's work towards the outside of that. It intersects, so it's going to pick up underneath here at this other little end spot. So we're going to come right around the end of it. Just close it in. Okay. Now this line here that's not beveled yet comes underneath, so it's a continuation of this line here. Comes underneath. Picks up right there. And it's just fading off underneath there. You could even pick it up and make it fade right through there. Okay, now going back where that all started from, This is the line that came from, because this was our dominant stem we were moving out from. We move out from there. That fades off in there. Now it intersects, so it's coming underneath. We'll pick it up there. That's creating this top of that sticker vine, so we'll close out the top of that. Okay, now we just created some more background spaces in there. So I'm gonna come along and check those background spaces at the inside of this one. Inside of that one. We have the inside right down here in this little spot. Now this, in a normal pattern, would technically be a background space as well. So all those lines are beveled in towards each other. However, with this pattern, there's nothing really tells you that about this unless you look at your original. But if you look at your original before we start, you can see to create the look of that head being right there, that one background space, I don't actually bar ground that. I leave that so we'll dye that or leave that the same color as our border to help make some more definition and layering in there. So that background space we're actually not gonna background down right now. So that's being ignored on purpose and not bar grounded down. Okay, now let's come out. We'll move over to our next end point out here and start working our way back from there. So this is this end stump down here that's folded up over there. I can tell that because these lines come right down close, but they don't intersect there. That's a tight little corner, so I'm going to grab that small bevel real quick to get in there. Okay. Now if I look, we've already worked on the inside of this, right? Come off the inside, and then we run into other main vines that have already came through. So coming to the other side, working on our outside, that line comes through, comes underneath. We pick it up right here. Intersects, so we're coming underneath. Intersects something, so I look, yep, underneath. That intersects, but it looks like it's fading into another big dominant space filler here. So we've created a couple little background spaces we'll come and pick up while we're here. Okay, we got those. Hello, hey TJ, see you jump on there. All right, now look at this big stump laid off over in here. So that becomes a new big space filler that we're going to come and work our way around. So I'll work on this side here. Intersects, so it's going to pick up underneath there. We'll just roll this around as we go here. That line just fades out there. Okay, because that's become over top and fades right along there. So let's follow that back up. And we can continue going right around the outside of that stump. Going on the outside of that space filler there. And that stump's got these two lines that just V together. Still the outside of the stump. Continue working our way around there. Now I look and I see this line, it doesn't intersect anywhere, it just fades off close here, right? Okay, now as that's fading close, it's showed me that this is something that's rolled over. It's now creating its own dominant stem out of itself, right? So we can start working our way out from there. Continue to fade that right along. Now we can see where it comes in and is intersected with these other dominant stems that have came in here. So if I come back to where we started with that space filler, we created a couple more background spaces there, right? So let's come get those marked in so we can see that, because all those lines are beveled in towards each other. Okay, now we got to look at what's happening here. What do we have left for lines? This space filler's coming over. We have this vine coming in, all this vine work coming down and intersecting here. So we have this stump sitting off in the middle there too. So that's another end point that we can come work our way around. Okay, and that's created a couple background spaces there as well. Okay. Now, these two stumps, you can see these two lines kind of creating that space in the middle of those big stumps. When you look back here, see how that's actually part of the stump itself, kind of that you could do a seed pod there or a crosshatch like I did here, where those are all going to bevel in towards each other. But this is your one exception in the pattern where those lines coming in are not creating a background space. So we're going to put those in there without actually bar grounding in them. So we'll come back later in our tooling in the next video and put our cross hatching in those. Okay, so we're getting this whole part of our pattern done. Again, we've left this background space for our final look, so it creates more of that layering of that Bronx head coming around there, and we got some definition underneath his neck and shoulder so we can see that spacing in there. Now we just have a few more lines back in here that aren't beveled. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll follow through our guidelines of looking towards that end point, this space filling stump down here. We've worked around the outside. That intersects. Oh, it picks up here. Comes, picks up where we've already gotten because it was an outside piece. Now the inside comes along. It's going to pick up right here just where that folds over. Now that's finished out. Coming to this one, outside came in, faded in close already, so we can see that's fold it over there, creating its own dominant stem. I can work my way out. That comes and just V's in and intersects with this other dominant stem that's coming out of it, right? So I can turn that. Let's follow that out both ways. This one doesn't intersect there, it just fades in close, which tells me that's rolling over. So I can work out to the bottom side of that. Now we just created background space. These three lines all beveled in towards each other. With any of these rules, don't get caught up too much on the rule. Always remember that you're looking at the big picture too, so don't get caught up just on your individual lines. Take a second if you need to, step back. Okay, what is it that I'm tooling? What are we doing here? Okay, we've worked our way around. This dominant stem's coming in. This dominant stem's coming back, creating this center little space filler little pod here, so we can come around the outside of it. Now we've created another background space, right? That would be a background space. Again, looking at the big picture of what we're doing. And this was something I just had to look at as I was drawing this pattern to start with, but we were leaving this background space to show definition. We're also going to leave this one. As we can see here, that's by leaving those two spaces, it's going to help bring that definition, that head coming around. And it's also going to give a chance to split these two hind legs and show that those are two different legs on that same horse. So I'm going to leave that space as well. This dominant stems came in, this one's came in, creating our last little centerpiece here. And we can come finish working around the outside. And again, with our little seed pod or crosshatch that we're going to do later, we can bevel those in towards each other. But we have created one last background space there that we will fill in with our bar grounder to help show that. All right, so there we have it. A few guidelines that hopefully you guys find helpful, that is a way to help break down a pattern that we can take complicated mess of just straight lines and figure out which side to bevel those on. Again, we're going to continue this series. This was just part 2. If you missed part 1, be sure and go back there. That shows how we cut all the lines in and then started with our beveling to get us on the right guideline for which way to bevel. That step 1 was to go around that outside edge. But the finished product that we're going to be working towards in the next video, when we bring in all the other tools and the details, we're going to come in, do our shading and our detail work, come up with our final project of that tooled bucking horse. So I really appreciate you guys taking your time to join me here and follow along. Any questions, shoot those at me. I tried to pick them up as we were going live, but if you're watching this on the replay or over on YouTube, be sure and drop questions in the comment section so I can answer those the best I can in a timely manner. So thank you again. We will see you on here for more videos as we work through all the tooling patterns that we offer. If you are tooling along with me with this pattern, shoot me pictures. Love to see how it's coming along and what you're doing with it. If you're not but want to, the link in the description will take you to the website where this is available along with all the other patterns that we have. So thank you again for joining, and we will catch you guys next time. Have a good night.